Hey everybody, happy Saturday night. Today is February 22nd, 2025. This is the season opener for the Philadelphia Union, and shocked, surprised, happy. There's a lot of emotions going through me. So, Jose, as I share these links out for the show, please kind of just take it away.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Mike, for putting this together. We're going to have a few guests coming and going throughout the night. Currently, on my side, I have there's Dave. Yeah, I have the press conference waiting to hear from Bradley Cornell, his very first victory press conference that I guess is about to kick off here in a minute. So
Dave and I will carry the show. Dave, perfect timing. Hello, first of all, good morning. Sunday morning in England. How are you doing today?
Well, I mean, it's been a long ass day. I got back from Carlisle just in time from the game, and wow, I think it's the one word to describe it.
So let's start from the beginning. We got people coming in, saying hello. So I appreciate you guys coming. I'll bring your comments up in a second. This is our first post game show of the year. We're going to try to make this a regular thing to the best of our ability. When you first saw the lineup, Dave, what were your initial thoughts? As we really didn't know what to fully expect tonight.
I was shocked by perhaps the lack of experience defensively. Obviously, Westfield starting at right back, Macania in the centre half. You perhaps thinking maybe Klivinovic may have started, with the prestige of the club he's coming from. Maybe in Bizo at right back, just because you know what you've got. But I mean, credit to them both. They both didn't the cut of place. They both look solid. And again, Westfield got an assist. So, wow.
So I was thinking, Nathan Harrell's going to be out. We're going to see Mbizo in there just to bring some veteran leadership. We've seen him already with the back line with Glessens and Kai. I was surprised, like you. I didn't expect to see Frankie and Makanya in there. But I think we've all said over the past, year or two, if not more, we've been a bit underwhelmed by Olivier's performances. And we think, hey, where's those assists? Where's that, aggressive play? And tonight, Frankie shows up and he gets an assist. Kyle and Jillian now join us. I think it's just Kyle right now joining us too as well. Kyle, I was just segueing into Frankie Westfield and how he kind of surprised us tonight. Had a very veteran performance for somebody who just walked onto the field for the first time. What were your thoughts on Frankie Westfield tonight?
I mean, I'll be honest. Like, having covered him with Union 2 last year for Jillian and I, this was awesome to see. He just has grown in 8 months, and just to see that growth. And Dave, you've seen that with players in your club as well, like how they just come out and they're like, oh, they could be a prospect, but then they just take off. And so to see his journey has been remarkable, and I'm so happy for him. I'm so happy for the family, and shout out to them, because that was a gritty 90. Well, when did he come off?
Frankie?
Yeah, when did he come off?
Close to the end. I stopped watching like the 85th because I had to get the show set up. So it was around there.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, like, I thought it was, just a really nice performance from him. And the thing that stuck out to me tonight is the grit of the team. And even the announcer said that, like, there's heart on this team. And, Cornell has talked about that during the preseason. It's preseason, so we'll see. But tonight was just an amazing performance.
I think the one promising thing to look at is, right, we were really poor at Super Park last year. So now you get steal 3 points on the road. But you're also missing 2 of your new additions this year, right? They haven't come into the lineup yet. So you think, wow, we got 3 points. We had, 4 people starting for the first time, I think it was, what they announced tonight. So really didn't expect to get even a draw out of this. So the fact that you pull off an impressive win like that and really, belt to ass in the start of the second half and make it 4-1, I was absolutely surprised. But I think it's a great way to start the season. People in the comments mentioned Macania holding the zone tonight. Frankie Westfield, they seem to be pleased with his performance tonight. Steve Fuentes mentions relentless pursuit of the ball all night. And you saw that right off the bat. You see Quinn Sullivan forcing a turnover, getting that ball over to Kai, who sets up Rebo. You see Ua with a turnover to get the goal. The pressure was just nonstop all night. But I think we have to talk first of all about Quinn Sullivan and his performance. Dave, you know I'm a big Quinn Sullivan stan. So what were your thoughts on Sullivan tonight?
Again, I just think he really excelled in that wide, being that wide and in the position he was in. I mean, you sort of noticed him and Gazdag swapping sides as well every so often. And I think that is a massive difference in comparison to last year and what you see, like what we saw. But when it was the diamond, it was all compact. Everyone was sort of occupying similar space. There wasn't, do you know what I mean? There wasn't much space for players to maneuver in and utilize. Whereas now this year, you've got the two, then you've got the two wingers a bit further up, then you've got the two strikers ahead. There's so much more space for them to utilize, and I thought Quinn really excelled in that because he was able to commit a bit more, if that makes sense. Without perhaps leaving the team overexposed. And again, you saw his press as well. First goal, leading to the first goal, winning the ball high up the pitch. Got stuck in. I mean, I said to Mike, it looks like he's bulked up a bit in the off season.
He might be hitting those squat racks with Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley because listen, you guys know. I mean, Dave, especially you, me from we first started the show. I've always loved Quinn Sullivan.
Yeah.
I mentioned last year, and I think I mentioned in our preseason show, one of the players we had to watch last season the most, or rather, one player that the opponents had to watch the most was Quinn Sullivan. He was just always making something happen, and for him to do that tonight again.
Yeah.
And we've talked about him being on the left side before last year, and he was on the left today, puts a beautiful cross to Daniel Gazdag at the far post. I mean, he just did everything right, and he was very much an electric spark when the Union really didn't start out strong. And this game could have gone south. I mean, after 15 minutes, that could have been 2-0. I think Eric might have mentioned, if it wasn't for Blake, that might have been 4-4. So, Kyle, I mean, early on, the first 15 minutes, what were you feeling? Because we don't have high expectations for this year, and you give up a goal within 7 minutes.
No, Jill and I both looked at. Actually, I was looking down, typing up an article I'm working on, and I looked up, and there's a goal, and she actually turned on Dave Leno, and she's like, I just got a notification. I'm like, what? She's like, you don't want to know. And then like the goal came, so we turned that off. But yeah, when that happened, we're like, okay, here we go again. Union behind again. But then the relentlessness again. We talked about it. Even I told her in the first 3 minutes, I'm like, they're pressing, and Orlando City doesn't know how to operate. Now, to Dave's point, like there were times in that first half, so I'm like, oh man, both teams could have been up 2-3 goals easily. It's an early season game, and so there's going to be blunders, there's going to be miscues, but yeah, at the end of the day, like to go 1-1, I was like, this is good. I'm seeing all the Frankie Westfield and Quinn comments on here, but yeah, I just think the second half was a big difference. Just to come out like that, I want to know what was said. And hopefully Jillian, Todd, Jose, who are on the press conference, I want to know what was said there because
Val and I were texting during the game, and I told her that they were showing Ilsinho highlights during the halftime because that was the only explanation as to how this team came out absolutely on fire. At one point, go ahead, Val. Go ahead.
But to your point about Quinn, he is our breakout guy for this year. I think he's going to have a huge year. And just within the system, how he's progressed from last year now, you're seeing it again. I mean, I think he's going to have a career year. And mid-season, I mean, would it surprise you both if clubs are calling for him? Because he looked impressive tonight.
Sure, I absolutely agree. I think somebody mentioned in the comments that I think he's trying to get to Europe faster than Cavan is. Sean joins us tonight saying, once Danley and Lukic settled the midfield down, the game swung to the Union a bit. And I agree. I think I like the midfield tonight. One point, though, that Eric brings up, and I'm just going to try to find it here. Other than the defense, my only concern is that we let off the gas in the last 15 to 20 minutes, just like last season. I thought the same thing, too. I thought that the subs were a bit conservative, especially because you bring out Ua and Baribo, and I think you throw in Donovan and you throw in Bedoya. I think you still have 20 minutes to go, give or take, once the substitutions are made. Dave, I know the substitutions for Jim Curtin were a hot topic issue throughout his tenure as coach for us. What did you think of the substitutions tonight? Do you think they let off the gas a little bit too early tonight?
I think they're strange ones. I think we can't really judge the substitutions because of the situation the team's in. They're 4-1 up. Like at that point in the game, with 20 minutes to go, you're just putting on fresh legs and just getting players in that just going to again add fresh legs to the game. And I know Bedoya's getting up there in age, but I think when we could really judge, the substitutions is when when it's a tight game, it's 1-0, it's 1-1, the Union are chasing the goal and they need the goal. And then you can sort of see how Carnell does adjust to the game. Does he do like for like changes? Does he adjust the system, which we never really saw Jim do? Jim would just make like for like changes. That's when we'll see. I think the one thing that really stuck out to me tonight was the clinicality of the Union, and you look at the difference between the two teams. Again, like the Union had 4 shots on target, scored all 4 of their shots on target, whereas Andre Blake made countless fantastic saves, and the Woodwork saved the Union a couple of times, a couple of big misses. Like again, the Union did ride the luck, but I'd also want to credit them the fact that the mentality of the team going into this game, the fact that new manager, young players, young lineup, young lineup, and they go goal down within the first 10 minutes. The team's opening home game. It's a raucous crowd, loud, fans on top of the game. To concede that point, the team could have crumbled. And I think we mentioned it in one of the CCL games last year and said, don't concede early in that first half, otherwise the game could turn its head. And I think I'm trying to forget what the game was, but I think they lost like 4-0. Was it Cruz Azul?
Are you talking about the 6-0 absolute ass beating that we got last year against Pachuca?
Pachuca, that's it. Pachuca.
Let's not talk about that game, Dave.
Mentality-wise, they conceded early, and the game, the floodgates opened. Whereas this could be a change of mentality. The fact that they've got to go behind, and to be fair, they really grew in. They responded really well to the goal. They looked comfortable. They grew into the game quickly. They looked comfortable in possession. They were getting balls into the box and around the box, and were pressing really well. And it looked like a well-structured old machine as to start to gain confidence. And hopefully, this is a sign of things to come.
I agree. Speaking of people that are, now joining, I don't know. That was a bad segue, but here's Todd Lewis. I couldn't think of a good segue, Todd. I'm sorry. Here you go. Todd and Jose have joined us tonight. Now, they just got done the press conference with Coach Carnell. Todd, I'll go to you first. Impressions on the game and any thoughts from the press conference that you just were a part of?
Yeah, I think the first half, I think the Union would probably be happy going in 1-1 at the half against Orlando City. And, I go back to something that Jim Curtin had always said over the years, and I'm sure it's no different for Bradley Carnell, where, when you're on the road, you just want to get into the half with a chance. And the Union did exactly have a chance. And then, they come out flying in the second half with back-to-back goals with Daniel Gazag, and then you get a gift from Robert Schlegel. And I don't know how many people in the comment section remember watching Bradley Carnell in his first year with St. Louis City, but that goal reminded me of all the goals that Joao Klaus would get for Orlando City, where it would seem like mistake after mistake from the opposition, and it was just easy goals for Orlando City, it seemed like. But look, it doesn't matter how you get your goals. To see the front three scoring their goals, and that was fantastic, right? To get your front three firing, and I think this team didn't have an issue last year scoring goals. That wasn't the issue with this team. It was defending. And yeah, there was a little bit nervy moments. The second goal that the Union conceded there, Macania gets caught ball watching. Luis Morel's shot goes off the post, and then you have Pashtalic who hits it off the post, and then he gets his own shot back, and then he winds up in the back of the net. But, little moments like that where, okay, look, it wasn't the perfect game. It wasn't a perfect 90 minutes for the Union, but you if you're a Union fan, you have to be pretty happy with what you just saw, that the attack continued from what it was last year. I know those three players, Mikel, Daniel, and Ty Baribo, they ended the year slow, where if they were putting the ball in the back of the net, they probably would have made the playoffs. But,
sure,
whatever happened last year happened, and it's a fresh new start. And to see those guys firing on all three cylinders, I mean, that's fantastic, and that's going to boost well for the rest of this club. And now imagine when you get Bruno in here, that's going to add to your depth. And to see Bradley Cornell use always substitute in tonight's match, something that we never really saw under Jim Curtin. It just speaks to the belief that Bradley Cornell has with every single one of these players.
Well, Jose, I mean, I'll go to you next. I think this comment kind of segues perfectly from Todd's thought right there. You're still missing 3 players that are not yet part of this rotation. How you feel? There's Jillian as well. We got just a whole group here tonight. I love it. Jose, what are your thoughts on both the comment, Todd's thoughts, and what Coach Cornell had to say tonight in the press conference?
I read that dude's name, whoever put that comment in, and all I can think about is that Washington Commanders fan who's like Shay Sean. Barkley. It just cracks me up. First and foremost, that was a nothing burger press conference. Like I think I'm starting to lean towards Bradley Cornell not being Jim Curtin more and more, right? And that's a good thing in a way, right? Not really sharing too much or whatever. So we'll have to see how we crack that nut for all the folks who show up to the press conferences. But to the point of the comment and Todd's comment as well, Ty, Ua, Danny, Quinn, all involved in some way, shape, or form, whether it's a goal, whether it's an assist, whether it's helping turn the ball over that led to a goal. Add Bruno Damiani, who I think will probably slot in for Mikel Ua. And you just have a really interesting combination of players that can come and go. Throw in Indy as well. And maybe Quinn Sullivan comes off from time to time, or he goes in for somebody else in the attacking end, like a Gastag as well. So, like, it's really fascinating to see both online, but also in passing as I'm getting text messages nonstop this afternoon and this evening. Like, suddenly the fan base and folks around the league are looking at this roster and thinking, you know what, maybe this team isn't as bad as we were thinking. It's like, well, no shit. There's been plenty of us that have been sort of touting the idea of, like, there are more people behind the scenes than just Ernst Tanner that know what they're doing, right? Like, there are many, many more people who are involved in making sure that this roster is competent. And sure, they played a week, and witnesses here, and Kyle and Jillian and Todd saw that Orlando roster or that lineup today, and I thought, this is a very beatable team, guys. And a little bit of disagreement in our own separate group chat, but nonetheless, like, look what happened, right? And it's obvious that passing from the back is very much in preseason form right now, but could not have asked for a better start away from home at Orlando of all places, which is typically a tough place.
It is a very tough place, and even in the winter, it's still oddly warm down there, and it's a different climate, and it's just getting used to that. And I thought it was a great way to start the season. Jillian has joined us as well from the one team we agree on. So, Jillian, listen, I've asked this question to everybody about now. How did you feel after this performance? Maybe where have your expectations changed for this team after just 90 minutes? Or is it too early to get too far ahead of ourselves?
I mean, I'm going to temper my expectations a bit. I went in with low expectations because I was prepared to be hurt a little bit. But no, actually, I'm usually pretty Posidelphia, just ask Kyle. But, like, yeah, I am. But yeah, honestly, I didn't expect 4 goals. I was like, could I be pleasantly surprised here? Maybe. I would have been happy with the draw. I would have been really happy with the draw, to be honest. So, no, this far exceeded my expectations.
Absolutely.
What did you think about the second half?
Oh my gosh, they came out guns a-blazing in the second half. I thought that was a gritty performance, and after getting initially scored on so early, I mean, they got it right. Like, they just didn't, beat themselves up there. They just kept pressing, and it was great. Like, it was great to see them pick themselves up after that and really, be like, hey, we're still in this, get it going.
Well, it kind of reminded me of 2022, right? Like, they finally just had some killer instinct into them. And once they got one, they just kept going and going and going. And we just didn't see that last year. And if we did see that last year, they gave up 2 goals right after they scored a goal. And it just kind of reversed all that good flow that they had. Because to Todd's point, scoring was not the issue. It was just letting up constant goals. And I guess we're going to see probably some defensive miscues this year when you have a lot of question marks back there. I see some people mentioning next week's game. It's 53 degrees in Chester next Saturday, so a beautiful day at Super Park. I guess I'll go to Dave first. and just go down the line. Dave, entering next week's match, do you
50
want to
green
see any
gold.
changes on that back line, considering some of those defensive worries that we saw?
I think if Nate Harriel's back, you have to put him in. I think that's
Okay.
just a case. I don't know, maybe Harriel, and then I guess that second centre half position next to Glasnes is there to win. I mean, unless you don't change your winning lineups and you win so convincingly, but I would like to see Nick Harriel in there, just a bit more experience. You know, Cincinnati are a very good team,
Mhm.
so we know what to expect. They have very good players, and again, you want your best players out there, home opener. But again, Westfield played really well tonight, so I wouldn't begrudge the fact if Carnell decides to go for their own change lineup.
How about you, Todd? I mean, Glessons, I think, probably surprised us all, considering last year he started with an own goal, so it's already better than last year's performance. In terms of the center back duo, though, do you think there'll be a change there, at least in that position, or do you think, or also with Frankie Westwood, do you think he gets a consecutive start, considering his performance tonight?
Yeah, look, Makanya had that one glaring mistake that I mentioned, but I think overall he played solid. But the one thing that does concern me is the mistake that he had. You know, he's mistake prone, and we saw that a lot with Union too. And yes, he's a young player; he's 20 years old, I believe it is. But look, I mean, you can get away with those mistakes at the MLS Next Pro level, which
Mhm.
isn't the highest of high competition, but against national team players like Luis Muriel or like Pasalic, they're gonna make you pay. And I think, look, even if Makanya didn't make that mistake, I think you got to play Jan because he's on loan here, right? And
Yeah.
after that loan, you have that option to buy him, but you don't know what you have until you play him. And so, it reminds me of the situation a few years ago when they brought in Davo from Corinthians, I believe in 2021 it was,
Yep.
and he played one game, and it kind of seemed like it was a waste of a loan and a waste of an international spot. And as we know right now, I haven't heard anything, and I don't know if any of you guys have heard where the Union are getting their last international roster slot, but they are -1 right now, and so they have to find a way how they can register Bruno Damiani because they need that international roster slot for him. And I'm not a huge fan of Oliver Zumla, a backup goalkeeper, taking a international slot when he's a backup goalkeeper. And it's the same situation we saw a few years ago with Carlos Cornell when he was with the Philadelphia Union. They got him from Salzburg, I believe it was, Red Bull Salzburg. And he was the backup to Andre Blake, but he was taking up an international roster slot. And for a backup goalkeeper, I just think that's a big waste right there. And for Glavinovic, if you don't play him, doesn't it feel like it's a wasted international roster slot? So it's like, I want to see him playing as much as possible. He's only here for the whole season, and you got to decide, do we pick up that buy option, which I believe, Jose, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is around $3 million. So, yeah, I mean, Makanya, one big mistake in this game, but overall pretty solid night from him. But yeah, I would go with Glavinovic just because he's only here for a year and you got to see what you have. As for Frankie Westfield, I think that's a fantastic debut for him. One thing that I do think that's worth noting, the Philadelphia Union did not send out a press release. They posted this on their website that Neil Pierre and Frankie Westfield were both listed to be off roster homegrowns, and that was done so the Union can get compliant with the MLS roster rules, which was due yesterday. And so the Union, as everything stood, they were at 32 players, and it looks like Neil Pierre and Frankie Westfield have been the two players that they've designated to be off roster players, which then gets the roster down to 30 players. With MLS rules, you can get 6 short-term call-ups, and so there's 1 out of the 6 now used for both Neil Pierre and Frankie Westfield. So yeah, it's a great game from Frankie Westfield, but just because you're so limited on those call-ups, I wouldn't expect us to see Frankie play next week.
Interesting. See, and again, I think I mentioned to when it was just Kyle and Dave and I thought Olivier was going to play. I thought he was going to play considerable minutes. I'm glad he got in at the end, but Listen, if this is what we see Frankie right now, we don't see him next week. At least we got to see what he can do. I thought he was great. I thought he offered great speed. I mean, I've only seen a couple of Union 2 games, but I didn't realize how fast he was. He's really got a great motor. And considering the type of system that Cornell plays, it's great to have that type of motor. But Kyle and Jillian, somebody mentions here Andre Blake. And last year, he only played like, what, a dozen games or so, give or take. Seeing him tonight, kind of feeling like old Andre. And I held my breath every time he dove. I was like, is he going to come up okay? How do you think of Andre performance tonight and just seeing him healthy again? Because we haven't seen that now for almost a calendar year.
Oh, fantastic. He had some incredible saves tonight, and just, the awareness, of course, it just is next level. You see him directing the defenders around him, and that's what you're really missing, that leadership there. No knock to, Andrew Rick or Oliver Zemla, but they're just so much less experienced at this point. And you feel a little more confident with Andre there. But some of those saves he made were incredible tonight. And, hats off to him, because, man, he looked like we were talking about, it's like, man, it was like watching Andre of 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Right. There was that one play in the second half where he went up for a ball and dropped it on the rebound. And against a better striker running on the box, you can't give that up.
No.
Having said that, he was fine. He had a good night. He made some great saves. I'm good with that. At the end of the night, like, to Todd's point about and Dave's point about next week, like, if Nate is healthy, if he's truly healthy, go with Nathan. But if he's not, you got a capable player in Frankie.
Yeah,
give him another run. Now, Makanya, I thought, was fine tonight. He had that blunder, like Todd said. Having said that, like, Jan, like, yeah, if Jan's ready to roll, go with Jan.
That's
because, like, I don't know, like, it was a good night. We'll see what they do against a team like Cincinnati, because Cincinnati's going to be like, if they go out and they come out next week and we're all talking post game, and the Union have 6 points, that's a really, really good start to the season.
Yeah.
But we're not going to get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, I will say, having seen Makanya play a ton at U2, I was like, all right, let's see what we got here. And, he was always solid at that level, but I was really pleased with how he, aside from the blunder there, I feel like he's usually good for like a blunder like that once a game, but
did he make a name for himself?
Oh, we were waiting to use that meme. I'm like, oh boy, I'm gonna make a name for myself. Yeah, no, the Gambit thing. Yeah, we were waiting to use that, but no. So I thought that was really promising, because he's been waiting to get his chance at the MLS level for a while. So it's good to see him get that chance. See at least what you have there. And Frankie, like, he was not blinded by the lights there. He was the Frankie we know. He played like the Frankie we saw, just balling out at, next pro level. So that was really encouraging to see. And yeah, I think you go with Nate probably, if he's good to go, but it is really nice to know that you have a great option if he's not, because Frankie rose to the occasion, it's in the opening game of the season, way to step up.
And some for all of you guys, I want to ask you guys all. Mm-hmm. And Mike and Dave, we talked about this, but for Jose, Todd, like, just to see, like, Mikel, Baribo, and Todd, you and I have talked about this, like, that, Danny, Mikel, Todd, they hadn't scored since October. Like, to see them come back tonight, like, what does that mean for this attack? Because that's what's going to bring the Union forward. It's never been about scoring goals, but to see them get hot, like, opening night, I'm not saying it's the greatest thing. It's just, it's kind of hopeful. It's false hope, maybe.
Yeah, I feel like we haven't had Jose talk a lot here, but you guys were talking about Frankie Westfield. So you had asked us at the beginning, Mike, about the press conference, and one player that Bradley Cornell seemed to be crushing over a little bit in the press conference, whereas Frankie Westfield. So I guess my question to Jose is it clear that Bradley Carnell has a favorite player so far?
Maybe. Sorry, I'm just in awe that Inter Miami tied their game in the 110th minute, despite being down a man with a red card. Like it's unbelievable how that just happens to happen every week.
Play until they score.
Yeah, play until they score. Yeah, no, I think I don't know. I too am intrigued onto why these short-term loans have turned into website articles versus press releases that we used to get pretty consistently until was it the Olympic one that we never got, right? Or I forget. There was some confusion onto like we never got anything about this. I don't know. I think if Nate does go and stay injured or isn't healing as fast as we thought, or I guess as fast as Carnell, because the last time he spoke about his injury, I think he had mentioned that Nate was closer. I could have sworn that he would have played today. So I was kind of in shock when I had learned that Frankie was going to start. I was like, oh, all right, that's great. Happy for him. But like, I thought Nate was closer. I don't know. I can sense that maybe Frankie has done enough to cement himself in a way, but it's also kind of hard to see how, and it would be a great thing if there is a world where Frankie does take over Nate's job because of how difficult that would be. So obviously shows a lot of growth, but is he his favorite? Maybe. I think he was indeed crushing, Todd, as you asked it. He was crushing a little bit, which is kind of cute.
Well, I feel like just from a competitive standpoint, I think Dave, you and I have talked about this one-on-one. It's like if these guys don't have competition behind them, will they rise to the occasion to then better themselves to make sure they don't lose that starting spot? And I think you can make an argument right now, especially, obviously we don't have all of our roster here, of course, right? Chris Donovan's not replacing Michael Ua or Ty Bariba, but you have legitimate competition behind every single one of these players, except maybe Kai, right? Probably he's the one who's definitely going to start no matter what. So for me, from just a competition standpoint, you really have a really, really strong competition behind Olivier, Harriel, and Frankie, which is great. But even in the midfield too. But Todd, I actually had a question for you from a a formation and a tactical standpoint. I felt like early on, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like Daniel was coming back to the ball a lot, and I just don't remember if I saw that a whole lot last year. Did you notice anything from Daniel Gazdag in this new lineup, this new formation that really might have caught your eye tonight?
Yeah, and it wasn't just Daniel Gazdag, right? You notice it with Mikel Ua, and you notice it with Ty Bariba. There's a team that is completely brought into, okay, we're going to go all-out energy soccer, pressing 90 minutes, and Bradley Carnell said in the press conference that, the reason for the substitution for Frankie Westfield was just because he was cramping a little bit. Every single one of those players gave their all until they were pulled out or all the way through the final whistle. So I wouldn't just single out Daniel Gazdag. Yes, he was dropping back, winning back the ball, but you saw it with a Quinn Sullivan. You saw it with both forwards, like I mentioned. You saw it with Danley John Jack, who I thought was excellent in this game. Right position, right time, just blocking out crosses, ball recoveries. Him and Lukic, I think, could sneakily be two of the best sixes in MLS. I know it's one game and you try not to get ahead of ourselves, but yeah, that pairing there of those two just winning back, it seemed like every single ball in the midfield, having legs and an engine for days. And yeah, I know Danley could have done a little bit better there on the goal. Jose, what was that?
Jesus Bueno got his green card. That's why they're roster compliant.
There we go.
Yeah, I think Tayshawn might have mentioned that too. Somebody brought it up in the comments as well. But thanks for confirming that, Jose.
I'm sorry. I had no idea because I wasn't there when you guys were talking about it earlier. Now I'm like, oh,
he's on the phone with Tom Bogert, just like chatting. I get it. I was like, it's all right.
I was going to say, Todd mentioned it earlier. Obviously, it was similar as well, being one of the players that takes up a green card or international roster spot, whatever. Like, it was very telling that he wasn't even involved in the squad today. Is that a potential that a move is right in the works for him to potentially go if he's the third choice goalkeeper? And as you alluded to, Todd, Jok Glavinovic also picking up an international spot from a perspective of you don't want to waste that spot of him sitting riding the bench for the first 2-3 months of the season, and then not knowing what you have. Whereas you somewhat do know what you have in Macania, where he's good for a mistake a game. And again, if this team is wanting to push towards playoffs, and they've not really made it their intention that this is going to be a rebuild year or retooling year where they can afford room. Like, are you really going to bring? I'm trying to explain. I don't want to sound like I'm being too critical on Makanya, but are you really going to be willing to take the risk of allowing a player to potentially cost you games week in and week out when you potentially have a fantastic centre half and solid centre half on your bench? And then the same for Sember. Like, are you going to be willing to have a goalkeeper sit there on your bench and be your third choice goalkeeper every season and waste another international spot when you got I forgot the name from the lad from Uruguay? Is it Damiani? Damiani. Also, not being able to get in the squad. Now, obviously, seeing how Westfield's performed today, is that then going to exonerate getting him up into the roster, being a full-time member of the squad, like, as opposed to wasting, one of those like 6 games or the off-roster short-term contract loan things, or the hell it is to get Westfield in. I haven't seen that performance. And again, if Harry'll's out for another 2-3 weeks, you're then pushing Westfield's 6 games further up to a point you have to make a decision of, do you stick or twist? You make him a full-time member of the roster, or do you get rid of, do you know what I mean? Or do you then not play him for 6 weeks to facilitate the other 2 games?
Yeah, I think the one thing to consider is, like, somebody, you mentioned Frankie, and so we could just continue to talk about Frankie. Is it's important that these guys are playing week in, week out, and so I guess that is a good thing there that they do have Union too. Where, look, CJ Olney wasn't on the bench tonight. David Vasquez, I'd imagine those guys will probably get a lot of opportunities again this year with Union too, as well as Frankie Westfield and Neil Pierre too. So, yeah, just getting those guys consistently playing. And yeah, MLS Next Pro isn't at the level MLS is, and it's not even at the level of, I would argue, a USL 1, and definitely not a USL championship. But still, just finding a way for these guys to constantly play week in, week out, as opposed to just sitting on the bench, is going to be key, in my opinion. For Damiani, from my understanding, and maybe Jose, you could back this up as well, that the whole reason he wasn't in the squad tonight is because he's still dealing with visa work issues. And I would imagine once all that gets corrected, he'll be in the starting lineup. I mean, you pay $3.4 million. Bradley Cornell, Jose did such a good job reporting on the comments the agent was saying that Cornell was making of Damiani, saying, "You're exactly what I've always wanted in a striker." And
drooling.
yeah, I mean, I find that to be believable. And yes, Mikel Uhr scores a goal tonight. Ty Bariber scores 2 goals tonight. And how do you justify having one of those guys on the bench for Damiani? Just like you can make the argument, how do you put Frankie Westfield back on the bench after a strong performance? But at the same time, depth's good. Competition's good. Bradley Cornell, I feel like that's going to be his key word this year. Competition, competition, competition. And we're going to hear that 100 more times the rest of the season. But yeah, you want players that are going to push players to the next level, players that are just on the verge of starting to maybe going onto the bench. You want players constantly pushing you. And so I think once Damiani gets his paperwork filled out, visa work complete, yeah, we'll see him in the lineup. I'd be shocked if we didn't, because imagine, that Orlando City team were getting really tired. The Union could have had 5-6 goals tonight. And imagine if that's Mikel Uhr coming off the bench and not a Chris Donovan. No offense to Chris Donovan, but there's a play there where Chris Donovan, towards the end of the game, seemed like he didn't know what he wanted to do with the ball. He kept it where he could have played Quinn Sullivan in. But imagine if that's Mikel Uhr going in a lot faster than Chris Donovan. Seems like he's more confident on the ball than Chris Donovan. Teams were already tired. Orlando City was already tired. Imagine if you bring in Mikel Uhr off the bench. That's going to be devastating. And so for a team where I saw some comments on social media saying, yeah, the depth isn't there, it proved to be there tonight.
It did. Jose, you want to take it from there, or Kyle John?
No, I would just say that Todd's spot on with Damiani's assessment.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't justify keeping your most expensive, though it's like some teams 1/3 of a best player value wise. Like, you can't just keep him on the bench. And even if it is your second most expensive player going into the bench, you just try to fit him in. So nothing else to add.
Yeah, like that would be a huge difference, I think. I mean, Damiani, with that would just be amazing. And Mikel coming off against tired legs. I mean, because Chris Donovan, no offense to him, great guy, but he was just messing around with the ball there. He should have had a goal or, they should have gotten a better shot off there because, that was prime there. But just bringing that experience, I think Mikel could be like lethal in that role.
Well, Kyle, I want to ask you this question right here. Do you agree with this comment? Because this is something that we've been talking about, the six of us, for the last year and a half. We have not replaced Corey Burke yet. I mean, I guess you could argue Sergio Santos. We haven't replaced that third presence. Do you think Ua then becomes that with the additions that we have added to this roster?
I mean, I think he could be. I would love to see, and Jim Curtin used to say, like, going after tired legs with third sub. Izzy Santos and Burke, he's a different player. But yeah, like, I mean, if you have three really good strikers, one's going to come off the bench. And that's what you need. And they had it in 2022. I hate to bring that year up, but they did. And moving forward, like, we need that. So, yeah, I mean, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I hate to bring it up, but imagine if they had that option back in. I'm not going to say it.
With that guy who won't be named from that particular play. Yeah, I absolutely agree. Listen, Kyle, I'm sure you'll appreciate this, and Dave, I know you definitely will. The Philadelphia Union to win the MLS Cup is plus 2,900. So, of course, I put $10 on it because you might as well catch them while they're still unknown. So, a $10 bet on a plus 2,900 MLS Cup win will net you $300 total of a return. So, not too bad if you feel super optimistic tonight. But listen, I think we've kind of touched on everything so far. The Union surprised every single person in this Zoom call or this StreamYard call, whatever. Every single person in the comment seems to be really feeling confident, but not overly confident, which is, I think, where we need to be right now. This is still a new team, new coach. The energy was great. I love the energy tonight. It did not feel stale like it did so many times over the last 2 years. But let's just wrap this up with a final thought. We have Cincinnati next week. Dave, I'll go to you first. Any final thoughts here before we close up tonight's show?
I mean, I think as far as starts the season goes, a dream start. But going off my other footballing experiences of this season, a full goal opening start to the season isn't a barometer of how the rest of the season will go. So don't want to cause too much of a downer. I'm going to try and keep level-headed with things, but getting a great start to the season, and it's a positive sign. I mean, I think we discussed it last podcast, and pre-season games are sort of a bit difficult to scout out sometimes, or you don't actually have the time to watch the pre-season games. They're in the middle of the week, or that, like, for you guys, like 2 p.m. in the afternoon, like 8 p.m. in the UK time, whatever. Like, they're a bit difficult to scout out, and if you see the lineups, you see the formations, you're thinking, oh, it's the exact same formations we've seen the last 3 years. Nothing's changed. But I should go out and see. It's still a 4-4-2 in theory, but actually have width, which I've been calling for like the last 4 years now. Actually having players who actually out wide, occupy wide spaces. I mean, it's good to see, and it's definitely my hope levels for this season have definitely increased off tonight. Not just off the performance and score, but just seeing how the team's set up, and again, just seeing more young blood actually being brought through into the team as opposed to relying on Ali Bedoya and Bizo to get you out of messes when they're not the answer.
Of course, and Bedoya played tonight, I think 20-some minutes too, as he always seems to find his way to do when Bueno's still on the bench. And Bueno, we'll see how much Bueno is involved as this new depth pieces are added in. How much further down the the order does he go with these new players on the roster? Todd, any final thoughts here, sir? Any new shows coming up that we can keep an eye out for?
Tomorrow I should be going live. I mean, I'm trying to do that the day after the game and everything. I did that last year. But as people can know, I've been going live now. So goals breakdown video out some point tomorrow, finishing up this article. So hopefully out later tonight or first thing tomorrow morning. goals breakdown video, like I said, tomorrow, and then live podcasts probably at 9:00 tomorrow. So should be fine. Talk a little bit more in depth in this game. Hopefully have somebody on from Cincinnati for a Cincinnati preview during the week. And yeah, really excited to see all you guys back at Subaru Park. A little bit bummed that I never took Jose up on seeing Dave when he was in town for Thanksgiving. So we'll have to we'll have to make up for that somehow. But
So-
yeah, I appreciate you having me on, Mike. I hope I made you a lot of money. And yeah, I mean, this was fun. This was fun watching the Union come out and a game that I honestly did not expect them to win. And Jose was talking about, this is a beatable team, Orlando City, and I was like, yeah, I don't believe you. And yeah, Jose knows what he's talking about sometimes, I guess.
Sometimes. By the way, you guys missed the great lunch with Dave and I at the Jug Handle Inn in Cinnaminson. The wings, Dave, perfection as always. He's had it twice now. He comes across the pond just for wings. It's just fantastic. Jose, any final thoughts here to wrap it up? Any insight here on whatever?
No, nothing. Thanks for hosting. Next week, I will not be available to do the post game show since I have a writing assignment. So I'm glad I hopped on today.
Yeah, actually, I won't be either. So we'll have to figure something out. We'll figure out something for next week. Kyle and Jillian, last but not least, any final thoughts here from you guys and any possible shows coming up this week that people can check out?
Yeah, we have a podcast coming. We're recording tomorrow.
Yep.
And it'll be out Monday. We also are going to do our post-game match thoughts, and we have a U2 article coming out. We were down. I was down Chester on Thursday, so interviewing. So we're going to have a U2 article coming out. But hey, looking forward to being back at Subaru Park.
Yeah, I guess you get to go, Kyle.
One of us will be there.
Yeah, one of us will be there.
We have swim meet.
A big championship swim meet. So
one of us will be there.
Yeah.
But Mike, thanks for doing this. This has been great. And everybody out there, I hope you enjoyed this. And hey, we had this game as a loss on our predictions.
I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah,
I was thinking more of a draw. I was like, I was thinking it was going to be a draw maybe, but I was pleasantly surprised. But they've got to keep it going because that was only one game so far.
So thank you.
Yes.
It's only just begun. Next week, like I said, Jose is going to be out. I have plans already as well. So we'll try to put something together, maybe some guest hosts. If you guys want to take it over, please feel free. Otherwise, this is Across the Pitch post-game show. We had like 540 viewers at one point. So I appreciate it. This is the most we've ever had. So I appreciate you guys having this. Even if we can't do something next week, I promise we're going to be on this as much as we possibly can. Not only just for us at AAT Sports, Jose Nunez, obviously, the big dog around here kind of taking care of business. But Todd, Jillian, and Kyle, your shows are absolutely fantastic. I want to get you guys on camera as much as possible. Promote your work because it really it's fantastic. It really is. So I appreciate you all. And 4-2, Union opened their season. Go Union.
DOOP.